One of the best to ever tote the rock down in Carolina, Johnathan Stewart with us to preview Lions and Panthers on a Tuesday.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a Tuesday, October 3rd, and a Wednesday, October 4th. Day off for the Lions as they get ready for the Panthers coming in on Sunday. Lions, of course, first place, feeling good at 3-1. Carolina at 0-4. A guy that knows so much about the Panthers and, of course, was a longtime running back there and Pro Bowler legend with Carolina, Johnathan Stewart, who is the host of the BLEav in Panthers podcast, joins us today on the program. Jay Stu, good to see you, buddy.
Good talking to you too. Good seeing you.
How you been?
I've been good. Just keeping myself busy. Got two little girls. Married here in Carolina, so just enjoying life.
I love it. You can follow Johnathan on Twitter at Johnathan Stewart. Of course, follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page. And of course, you can find us on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel, the broadcast today with Johnathan Stewart, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Johnathan, so you're hosting this Panthers podcast. I want to get into Carolina and Bryce Young and everything else, but let's go back to 2008. You guys played the Lions. You know where I'm going with this. The 0-16, by the way, Lions that year, but that was your career day that day. 130 on the ground and a touchdown. What do you remember about the old days and playing the Lions?
From what I remember, at the end of the day, NFL, it's hard to win games no matter what. Just putting that out there first. But, back then the Detroit Lions, was a team that everybody looked at on, the schedule as a team that was, a winnable game. Right.
Yeah.
Fast forward, you see that is not the case now. Right.
Yeah.
And you see that with a lot of teams.
Sure.
Over the last 10 years, it's been like a complete 180. But I do remember that game, and there was a lot of broken tackles, a lot of outside zone, mid zone, but bouncing out, making that one cut up the field off of the the offensive line, off the offensive tackle, or I'm trying to think who was our tight end. I can't even remember right now. Dante Rosario. Setting the edge there. I really enjoyed the 36 Buster. That's what our play. that was our main play, where Brad Hoover would pretty much lead us to the promised land. Really couldn't be wrong with him leading the way.
It's interesting because Lion fans will remember, you and D'Angelo Williams, double trouble as you were known. We're just so good. And now teams are kind of emulating what you guys did back then. You're now seeing most teams have two running backs. Lions have two with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Last year had two with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. I'm not saying you guys were trendsetters back then, but do you kind of look at it now and go, man, we would have been just as good now than as we were, 15 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great seeing, the opportunities that the running backs are getting, in that backfield. Through a course of a game, you got to put the ball in the playmaker's hands, and the running back position, the athletes that are coming in these days at that position, you got to find ways to distribute the ball, and running the ball. If you have a great offensive line, it doesn't really matter who's back there. Because at the end of the day, I feel like you have guys on the roster that you believe in that can tote the rock and that can do all the things, especially these days. They can all catch, they can all block. So if you have those types of guys on your depth chart, you got to find a way to give him the ball. So I think it's amazing, how many athletes, how many capable running backs there are in the league, more than there probably has ever been when it comes to the depth chart for every team.
By the way, you were in Carolina 10 years. You finished your career with the Giants and you retired as a Panther, which I thought was cool. But didn't you come to Detroit and visit years ago?
Yeah, I came for a visit, and it was cold. It was rainy, and I think I talked to I can't remember if I talked to Golden Tate or not about his time there.
Yeah.
But it definitely was not wanting to settle there. My wife definitely wasn't ready to settle there either. But we were in New York, and Gettleman, being that he was in Carolina,
right,
that made the most sense as far as the opportunity there, and everything that kind of aligned with drafting Saquon, understanding my role there. It was good. It was a good ride off to the sunset there.
So that was what, 2018. So that must have been Jim Caldwell was still there, or was that Patricia and them?
With the
in Detroit,
the Lions. Yeah. It was Patricia. It was his first year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made the right move.
Yeah. I heard some things didn't go so well under his leadership. But I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard being a head coach. It's hard being a player. The NFL is the best league in the world for a reason. It's competitive, and you have to bring it every single day, and that goes from the front office, that goes from the ownership, trickling all the way down to the people that are throwing away the trash. If you're not winning, it's hard to build a culture, and you have to have a culture to be relevant. So you got to figure out that balance.
You were in a pretty good place for a while in Carolina. I mean, you stayed. A lot of guys, a lot of running backs do not play 12 years in the league or even stay 10 years in one spot. What made Carolina so good for you?
I mean, the organization, just them understanding, from the top down to the bottom, understanding what it takes to win. And it's all about the locker room. It's all about, having comfort, right? You bring new guys in from free agency, they feel comfortable. They want to be there. They visit that locker room. I mean, there's been numerous of times where, you have a vet come in from a team that has, the biggest market, right? It's like, oh man, it'd be nice to play there. That's a great market. They come to our team. It's like, man, this is the best locker room I've ever experienced in my entire career.
That's awesome.
And so I think, the special sauce is, familiarity, chemistry, and the camaraderie that exist authentically. And so when you have those types of things, you have a great team. I mean, you look at Philadelphia Eagles, the year they won the Super Bowl, like I hear stories about that locker room and the culture there. I mean, Frank Reich was part of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's really a magical thing when you have a group of guys that can mesh and be on the same page, because it's hard to do when you have a group of guys doing anything. So it's a special thing. It's been pretty special, and I've been blessed to play for the Carolina Panthers for 10 years alongside some great individuals.
Johnathan Stewart, former Panther great running back, host now the Bleav in Panthers podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network, joining us. You must have then, it's too bad it was 2018 you came here, because if it was a couple years later, you would have loved to have played for Dan Campbell, right?
Oh yeah, Dan Campbell seems like he's fired up every day.
Yeah.
Especially when Deuce Staley was there. Obviously, he's here now in Carolina. I would love to, be coached by him. I was blessed to be coached by, Jim Skipper, running back coach here, Carolina Panthers, and so I know what a good coach is and what a good coach isn't. And right now, the Detroit Lions have a really great coaching staff being led by a really great coach. Understands the players, it seems, understands, how to get guys fired up, but in a way that's respectful. Not talking crap about guys, not talking down at guys, but talking on a level that is just trying to bring guys up to an elevated experience. So it's really nice to see.
I want to talk to Johnathan more about this game coming up on Sunday and what's been wrong with the Panthers. Obviously, it'll be a lot of offense talk, but we'll do that coming up next. I want to tell everybody first, though, I mentioned before about the Gametime app. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. That's because Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. I'm heading down in a couple of weeks to see the Colts and the Saints play. I'm going to get my tickets. The Gametime app, and then I'll be at the Lion game on Monday night against the Raiders the next night. But go to Gametime. It's the best. They got killer last minute deals, all in prices. And the best part about the Gametime app that I love is that you can see the views from the seats in the venue. That way you know where you're sitting. It's fantastic. Lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, and they even have job loss protection as well. See the view from your seat before you buy like I do. Gametime has deals on tickets from the start of the event. Even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find your last-minute seats. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, our guy Johnathan Stewart with us, a long time, a great down in Carolina, running the football for the Panthers, of course, and was a Pro Bowl player. Finished his career with the New York Giants. Joining us today from the Bleav Podcast Network and the Bleav in Panthers podcast. All right, Johnathan, this game Sunday, I mean, Carolina's coming on the road. Last year, the Lions got smoked down there, and it was just a ground and pound type of game. What's going on in Carolina? Why are they 0-4, and how bad has this offense played so far?
I mean, there's a lot of, things you can say right now that leads to an answer. But, I'm just going to say the things that need to happen for them to win games. I mean, you can't finger point at one person. You can't say it's, this position or this group of guys or what have you. Like I said earlier, man, like winning games is hard enough. But when you get a group of guys that can buy in and understand and believe in what they're doing, that's when you'll get a group of guys that are winning games. Obviously the offensive line has struggled, but, everyone can say what they want to say, but depth chart is there for a reason. And if you don't have depth, it's hard to win. When you're having, your second or third string guy going against the number one defensive end or the number one D tackle or number one safety coming off the edge, like, that's the reason why there are tiers in, the roster. There's tiers in the value of certain players. And yeah, you think to yourself like, hey, there's no excuse. And I mean, yeah, in the locker room, you hold guys accountable. Like, hey, you might be a third string guy, but you're getting paid to play.
Sure.
But the reality is that third string guy is third string for a reason, or that second string guy is not the starter for a reason. And so offensive line issues, running the ball, we got to be able to run the ball. If you have a team that can run it. It takes a load off of the defense. It takes a load off the quarterback, and just makes things a lot easier. And then I think we just go too lateral, in the passing plays right now. I'm not really sure if it could be a multitude of all of it, right? Not being able to run the ball, not being able to protect Bryce. So your play calling is, we're not going to call things that take long to develop down the field. Because we're going to get sacked. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there that, you can finger point if you want, but you're just going to be sitting there doing it all day for no reason until things kind of get locked in on injuries. And guys kind of, if guys just step up and just do their jobs, we'll see a different outcome. But until then, I think for the Carolina Panther fans or the Bryce Young fans, or just football fans in general, the Carolina Panthers, this is their they just played their fourth game of this entire staff, this entire group's existence, right?
Yeah.
Together. And they have a lot of problems. They got some guys missing. They got some holes to fill. So I think that's really what's settling. After drafting a guy number 1, there's a lot of excitement that goes with that and a lot of expectations, especially coming off of the years that the Carolina Panthers fans have experienced over the last several years. Patience kind of runs dry. But what people fail to realize is when you get a new coaching staff, you have to fill that patience cup back up. So things don't happen overnight, and don't burn your candle out.
Well, Johnathan, you mentioned Frank Reich a little bit ago. I mean, he poached a couple of guys from Detroit, Deuce Staley, of course, and Todd Wash, the D-line coach. I tuned into a little Charlotte sports radio yesterday just so I could get a little bit of a vibe of what's going on down there. And the fans are not happy with him already 4 games in, saying, well, and again, it's just phone callers, but in Indy, the offense was too simplistic, and now he's here, and it's the same thing. But again, like you said, he doesn't have Cam Newton, Johnathan Stewart, and D'Angelo Williams. He's got Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, and Miles Sanders. So how much is it that he doesn't have the material yet? And how much is it that this is kind of how Frank coaches?
I think people are reading too much into the fact that you're skipping over a lot of factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the game is won in the trenches, right? You look at the defensive side of the ball. Our last game against the Minnesota Vikings, they ran the ball pretty well on us. If it wasn't for them running the ball, the Minnesota Vikings lose. You know what I'm saying? As far as field position, time of possession, whatever it is, they were filling the gap of their wounded passing game with the run game. So but to settle that though, like, you gotta win in the trenches. You have to, if you don't win in the trenches, there you have no fight. And on the offensive side of the ball, we got to win in the trenches. And if you don't do that, your quarterback's going to be throwing off his back foot. He's going to be getting sacked. And in our running game, like, you can't look at Miles Sanders or Chuba Hubbard. I mean, these guys got to find the confidence in the running lanes. And right now, it's not a shot at the offensive line. It's just what their makeup is right now. It's just what they are in the 4-game span of time of the existence of the Carolina Panthers underneath this entire staff, underneath this entire group. And so there has to be growing pains. And I think right now these are either going to be considered growing pains because we're learning from it, or just pain.
I forgot our man, DJ Chark, who was in Detroit last year, is down there. How's he looking so far?
I like DJ Chark. He's proven to be an explosive player in the secondary, given a chance. And I would love to see more of him, with deep balls, deep crossing routes and whatnot. I think he's got a great, veteran in their meeting room in Adam Thielen, being able to, help develop him or continuing to develop him as a good player. You see Thielen, bringing him in has been a great security blanket for Bryce Young. The way he prepares, the way he goes out there. I mean, he's a straight dog. I mean, at the end of the day, when you turn on the film, you can point out all the dogs, right? And if you have more dogs on your team, then you'll win. So at the end of the day, like, if you're not showing up with that mindset that, hey, I need to be a dog for my team today.
I love that. That's awesome.
I think Thielen does that. And there's countless guys on defense that do the same.
Johnathan Stewart with us, former Panther great running back, Bleav in Panthers podcast. I want to ask him about the Lions, who have tons of dogs right now, and One of the reasons why they're 3-1. We'll do that coming up next. First, though, snap into action this NFL season with our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get that $200 in bonus bets for free, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app's easy to use. They got everything: point spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. All right, you got games on Thursday. You got the college games Saturday. Of course, Sunday and Monday Night Football. Anything you want to bet on. Lions currently a 9-point favorite from FanDuel for Sunday's game against Carolina. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Podcast Network and the NFL. All right, wrapping things up with Johnathan Stewart, Pro Bowl running back and a legend down in Carolina with the Panthers, played 10 years down there. All right, Jay Stu, what do you think of the Lions and what they've done? You mentioned before about Dan Campbell, but the turnaround, and you were a part of a couple of those down in Carolina, but how quickly to go from a 3-win team just a couple of years ago to a team now that many feel like after Philly, San Francisco, and Dallas, they're right up there in the NFC.
I mean, the turnaround definitely is incredible, first of all. I mean, but I'm not surprised, right? I mean, watching, what is it? They were on Hard Knocks last 2 years ago.
Last year, yep.
Last year. Just kind of being able to see what's going on inside of that organization from that vantage point, like, it's not a surprise. I mean, this guy lives and breathes not football, but he lives and breathes to lead men. And that's what it's all about. You got to get guys to buy into whatever you're telling them, right? And last year, I feel like Goff has, elevated his career by being under that type of leadership. But also I feel like the mindset of running the ball, like smash mouth, like him being a tight end. He played tight end, right? Dan Campbell.
Yep.
He played tight end. Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Just, mauling guys, on the goal line, like, we're going for it, like line up and running again. That type of mindset gives your quarterback confidence, right? Like because it's like, it's not all on him anymore. Like the accountability to win games, is, hey, quarterback, manage this game for us. Okay. Just don't turn the ball over. Goff has, I think he threw his first interception this year.
Yeah, he had a long streak going back to last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, turnovers, right? Turnover ratio is, the proof of all winning, right? And then you got a running game last year that was the staple. It was the staple of that offense. The mindset, the mentality. And they went after, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. The tandem there is just in the making. I mean, we really haven't seen Jahmyr Gibbs yet, and it's going to be scary once they actually figure out what they have in him. And I think, everyone's kind of like, oh, when are they gonna give him the ball?
I know.
Well, I can tell you when. December. Late November and December is when Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be fresh off the press, right? David Montgomery right now is running the ball really well. So, strike when the hand's hot, right? And don't really veer too far from it. But I love what they have going on just from that standpoint of, turnovers, just being able to manage the game and sticking it to, what you believe in, which is run it down people's throat.
Where do you look at and where do you have Detroit ranked? I mentioned before. I mean, obviously Philly and San Francisco this weekend. Dallas goes to Frisco to play. Are the Lions your fourth best team in the NFC, or do you think Detroit's even better than Dallas?
I think Detroit's better than Dallas.
Wow.
And I think Dallas, in my opinion, they win games when their defense plays really well. And I know defense wins games, but this is an offensive-minded league, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And at some point, you know, like you will get tricked. You will get fooled on defense to where guys will strike downfield, the explosive plays, whatever it is. And if your offense can't deliver consistently, that's going to be tough. I mean, I feel like right now they haven't really proven to me on offense that they can actually strike whenever they want to strike. And so that's just my opinion.
Johnathan, it was great visiting with you. Mad respect to you and your game. And then now, like I said, hosting the Bleav in Panthers podcast, you're home hanging with the kids and doing your thing. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it. Great insight.
Yeah, man, appreciate it, man.
You got it. There he is, Johnathan Stewart with us. Bleav in Podcast Network, the Bleav in Panthers podcast. He'll see his Panthers heading up to Ford Field to take on the Lions. We'll do a crossover on Thursday. Back again tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions.